Alex Fudge.
And that was for a client,
Okay, Catherine.
Yeah, they're not client.
and company was also a set expired?
There's no company, it's just a client.
Yeah, except for
We can, try to go back in again.
conflicted.
Like you say, you couldn't do.
Okay, there we go. Bank status. Hit view returns. Are y'all listening? Cause we're researching. Y'all hearing what we're doing? So it's saying the returns were filed, cancel. And it says the bank is pending, so go over, where we at? Go find her, there, click next to her name. Hit it again and make sure. Okay, try to open her. She's paid, she's accepted. Hit what if. What if allows you to go into the tax return without changing anything? Unless you just kind of look at it without doing anything. If you're trying to research or get answers for a client, you can go into what if to find out what you need to do. Click on it. And for people who are preparing taxes, you can go in and change things in what if to see, if like a client might say, oh, I had $500 in charitable contributions. Would that help me on my tax return? Should I amend it? And you know, you can go in and put it in and tell them, that ain't gonna move your return at all. Or it's gonna go up $2. You're gonna pay us for $50 for an amendment, you know, something like that.
And that's for clients, if what if comes up, that's for clients that have already closed out?
We've already finalized their return. Hit this. The X. Like you're trying to get out of it.
Courtney, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sale, well, no, cancel that. See, there's some reason, this one is on, go ahead and get out of it. Go ahead and click the X and get out.
Let me just.
No, don't ever hit this one. Always hit this one so that if it's offering you a note, you can get a note. That
What
one
she
may
just
do it.
said, no, you never hit that one, because
You're
it
okay.
closes out, it doesn't cycle through, and returns get hung up, so you
The
never,
X
ever.
or the
do that.
logout?
Yes.
I was doing the logout and then I was doing the follow-up dates
Mhm.
over there.
No,
I'm just saying.
when you
Yeah.
close it that way, always hit that.
Yes.
Because otherwise, it's gonna be stuck in the system, and if you were closing the client out, it will not process.
Okay.
Yeah, so what she's saying is, so that you guys understand as well, anytime you go into Blockworks and you're in a client, make a habit not to X out of the software. Go to the X and X out of the client. And you'll know you're Xing out of the client because it's gonna actually ask you to put notes in or say something or set a date or something like that. Go ahead and hit okay. Which, by the way, on appointments, so, go back in.
So which the client?
Yeah, go back in there. Sort this. Oh, here you go. Matter of fact, go back. Okay, here we go. Grab this person right here. Not
Mary?
likely to return, yeah. Or missing, just say, on the phone. Hit it. On the phone. The read wide action did it twice. It's funny trying to use the mouse and look at the screen, look at that screen, it's faster. It makes you
Well,
feel some kind of way.
seeing where you're pointing
Where I'm
to, and
pointing.
I'm just kinda like.
Okay, so, I wanted everybody to see this about appointments real quick. Click the X. At this point, it's asking us, what is the reason why we're putting this tax return on hold? Do that drop down. So here are the reasons. Client is missing information, that means you're waiting on something from the client. The tax pro needs time to complete it. The tax pro has some issues. Signature required, the person needs to come in and sign. Client not required to file. Something happened at zero, which they didn't even necessarily need to file, which, you know, we'll learn how to look at those ahead of time. Client not likely to return. Client didn't like the pricing, they like their refund, something happened and they probably not coming back. And then number 6 is a drop off. Okay, go back in here. After we choose that, we make a note. And tax pros, this note needs to be specific. I no longer want to see we're missing a 1099. We're missing what 1099? We're no longer gonna say we're missing a W-2 for who? The spouse or the taxpayer? Like, we need specific information so that when the CSP see these messages, they can be specific. Because here's what happens, and I already know this takes place. Child has been claimed and taxpayer approved it. This is a clear reason why we would actually say not likely to return. That's pretty clear, right? You might put on there, it's a business return. And we may say, need 1099. Okay, is it a business with multiple 1099s? Is it one 1099? So the CSP calls the client. Hey client, hi, we're trying to complete your tax return. We're missing your 1099. Well, I have 5. Which one? I don't know. You don't say that. No. So you're putting them in a bad position because it's like they don't. I don't do taxes. Hold on, sir. Let me find out. And so now they got to go call around and find out. Now they looking crazy because they done called the person because you said you needed a 1099. They just called asking for the 1099, and now they look stupid because they don't know what to tell the people. So I can see why you guys wouldn't want to call because you get in the middle of that. I think one of you guys have gotten in the middle of that already.
So you should have put my initials and the date and the time, if I may have known. So that
Okay,
way they
you
can
want-
refer to the tax pro and ask before they
Who
call.
did it? That's a great idea. So let's put that in. Monique, you heard that? Let's
Yeah,
put that in place. When we put a note out here, we put in our initials and a date. And so when you guys see that, if this is not clear, you can ask that question, yes.
So if this is an existing client, so we filed the business tax return last year, and we're filing again for this year, and he may not have the same 1099 which he filed for the previous year.
That's true.
So is the client supposed to let us know that, okay, I'm not having this, or we just gonna assume that?
We usually have a list.
Checklist.
We have a taxpayer questionnaire in the beginning, and it asks you how many 1099s you have.
Every
So,
year.
Every year. Every year. We do this thing different. So when the CSP, if the CSP in this case if we came up with that option, if the CSP would have done their job in the beginning, they would have asked and had all 5.
Okay.
Or they would have said, I only see 4 here. You said you had 5.
Mhm.
So before it got to the tax preparer, it would have been acknowledged at that point. But now that it's gotten to the tax preparer, and the tax preparer pulled the return from last year, and there was 5, and they only have 4, the tax preparer can actually say, hey, it looks like the client had 5 last year, so I would be missing this one. So now the CSP is saying, I'm missing this particular 1099, and you give the client an opportunity to say, oh, I didn't work for that company this year, or, oh, I'm sorry, let me get that to you. So we're more specific.
Right.
If we can get it right up front, then we don't have problems on the back end. On like these drop-off returns, it is very important, and until you've done a tax return with us, you just don't get how hard it is to have to go into a tax return 8 times because you didn't have the documents you need. It's so frustrating.
So when this kind of drop returns come in, how many times you are supposed to follow up with the client?
If we get it right the first time, and we're gonna talk about that in a minute, it's a 24 to 48 hour turnaround. We should be done in 48 hours. unless the client is actually waiting for something that they didn't get. That's the
So-
only time, or we're asking for something that they didn't even know they needed.
So do we provide a client the checklist when they drop off the documents?
We
or-
ask them to fill it out.
Okay,
and
and
we
then
confirm
the person who takes it verifies that we got everything.
That's what they should do.
Supposed to do that.
And that's what we're going to do this year. And so the reason we're going through all this stuff is to show you, let me tell you, I'm lazy. I am like the laziest person that you could possibly meet. And because I'm so lazy, I am not lazy. And this is what I used to tell my kids all the time. If you want to be lazy, you better make a lot of money. Because you don't want to do nothing. So you do more when you're lazy. So for me, the faster I can get on it and get this thing done, the better it is for me. This gives me anxiety. 37, 120, all that, them missing, that gives me anxiety. Because now I got to go in and fix all this stuff. At some point, I got to fix it. I'd rather get it out the way the first time. So I'm diligent. Okay, how many, you said you had this, I see this, I see this, I see. Okay, so I have this, that, and the other. Well, I didn't see you answered this question. I need every question answered. Well, I didn't know what that was. Well, this is what this is. If you don't know it, you probably don't have it. So are you saying you don't have it? Cool. The answer's no. Circle no. I'm making sure you fill this thing out to the T because I don't want to work harder later. Because that's all that happens. We go in and we have get the tax return done. And again, y'all don't understand until you've done taxes how hard it is to have to go back to a tax return over and over and over again. It is just, it's just, I could even got 3 tax returns done and I'm going back to this again.
Yeah, she has a good point. You forget where you were, and it's easier for us to make mistakes when you have to go back in versus you sit down with it one time, finish it, and be done with it. When you have to keep popping back in, it's easy to make an error.
Then you go back in and you learn,
Right,
did I
second
look
guess
at
yourself,
this?
yep.
And now you go back through the whole thing again. Go ahead.
So if client forgets to provide us the documents, like for instance, this year he had 4 1099s and he just gave us 3 and it's a brand new client.
They filled the document out.
And then they
They
come back
told
later.
us 3.
Uh-huh.
When we put their paper together, if they gave it to us physically, we stapled 3.
Uh-huh.
But they filled it out and put 3 and they signed that.
Okay.
We didn't touch it. So
Okay.
if you bring another one in,
Do we
that's
charge
on
for
you.
that?
We're charging you for an amendment if you need us to do an amendment.
Okay.
We'll suggest you just let them send you a CP 2000 because that'll save you some money. You're gonna owe it anyway if you owe, you know. But the other part is if they told us 4 and we only put 3 in,
Then it's our
now we have a problem because we didn't do what we needed to do.
But we usually go with the return of the client when they come in and sign.
Yes.
And even if it's approval online, we ask them to not approve it if you see something.
Something that you're missing, yes, and then we just make documentation of that. So anyway, so once we choose what we're gonna do here, at the bottom down here, like change this to signature required. Okay, you guys see this at the bottom. Now, we have been notorious for choosing follow-up date, and we just choose a date. We've been choosing a random date in the future. Right? How many people have been doing this? Okay, that's our problem. You know what we're not doing? Calling the client and saying, hey, appointment, when can we get you to send this document? When can we get you to come in and finalize the return? When can we get this information? So you said this date? Okay, no problem. So now the CSP has a date that is supposed to be an appointment date, and they can call that morning, the day before, whenever, and say, hey, you said you was gonna bring this document in on this date. You good? We good on that? Try not to extend the date any longer, but you know, if they need to, we can. But that's what I want to use. I don't want to see follow-up date anymore, unless it's us. If it's something we didn't do that we gotta get back to, then we'll do a follow-up date. And so the tax preparer will do a follow-up date. Otherwise, it's appointment.
They should communicate with Blockworks on that dashboard page to say the appointments for the day for that office.
It does automatically. all this should feed into
Right.
And we
that.
opens appointment manager, you have to book appointment. on
Yes.
appointment manager,
Yeah.
so it doesn't select it.
It does, but it opens it, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So my point is, we need to schedule an appointment. We need to not just choose a date in the future, because that's why those files sit there so long. So we need to actively be working with the client to close the file within 24 to 48 hours.
The tax preparer or the front tax?
That's the tax preparer.
Okay.
That's gonna, call, because you're probably likely talking to the client.
Okay.
So, hey, I need this document. We're gonna try, as this year as tax preparers, we're gonna try to do most of this work and on the back end. Because the CSPs have got a lot on their plate now. Because they gotta make sure we make $700 or however much, they gotta make sure the office is run, the supplies are done, all that stuff. And they're not well versed at taxes right now. I don't want them answering questions that they can't answer. You shouldn't want them asking, so, the person at the front desk told me my refund was, because they misread it, they told me my refund was, $5,872. No, that's how much you owe. Now they pissed.
Oh, on that note, if someone calls and says, I just wanna know how much you charge for refunds, we don't know until they get in there and we look at their paperwork, because they'll say, oh, I just have one W-2, and then they don't. They have like a whole
So
bunch
are
of
they
stuff.
not, are we not utilizing the estimate?
That's what I was about to say. We have what's called an estimator tool, and you can utilize that tool to determine what they owe. We're gonna get more into that closer to when we start getting prepared for next tax season. We'll start talking about that. You can do an estimate to show them. To give them an idea, but you also backdoor it and say, if this is what you
You bring
have,
it, anything
this is
different.
where you are.
Right.
But if you bring anything else additional in, this number
May change.
will change.
Anything.
That's how you keep saying that. Because what they'll do is try to get you to say something and then come in and say, you said, no, I said, if you brought any other document in, this is where we are. So anyway, but from now on, we're gonna do a follow-up date. All right, so close that out.